Hi, I'm Promise Israel, and today we'll cover what smoking looked like in my childhood environment. Let's get started.
Took me a minute for me to get to know you, but I'm here and now I'm ready. I neglected the fact that I didn't know you now, but I'm ready.
Before I say anything else, I am not promoting cannabis use. This series is not meant to glorify, enable, or promote cannabis use specifically in the area of smoking. This is my personal journey, my personal experience, and a deeper conversation about honesty, environment, childhood exposure, and the things adults normalize that children quietly carry. When I think about smoking in my childhood environment, the first word that comes to mind is normal. It looked normal. It felt normal. It smelled normal. It was so common that as a child, it almost blended into the background of my life. As a matter of fact, it did blend into the background of my life. It blended. It was on me like skin. Everybody smoked that I was around except for my mother and my aunt. I did see a picture of her when she was young, probably, I don't know, 18 or 19, and it was a picture of her smoking a black. But as far as me growing up, seeing my aunt smoke, nope. Her and my mom did not smoke. I've never seen my mom smoke anything. And those were two of the people who molded me the most. But even though they didn't smoke, the fact that so many other people did overshadowed the fact that they didn't. And I think that's something people really need to consider. Adults, think about that. As a child, you don't sit around and analyze who is smoking, who's not smoking, what are they smoking, and what it all means. You just know smoke. That's the bottom line. You know what you see, what feels normal, what shows up around you over and 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 over again. And for me, it was smoke. Smoke was just one of those things. As a child, you really don't know what people are smoking. You have absolutely no idea. You don't even know that it's so many different things you could smoke because smoke just looks the same. A child sees just the smoke in the air. They see how you consume it. They see the inhale, they see the blow, they see the smoke. And it's just like a wow factor for kids. So they're not even concerned about what you're smoking. And that's the thing. A lot of times adults are judging each other in these environments because you feel like you better than this person or that person because you smoke this or you don't smoke that. Big dog, you smoke. And either way, the bottom line of smoking is it's just not good for the human body. That's why when I make videos like this, it's not to enable or encourage anyone to continue to consume. It's to just bring awareness about the fact that smoking is detrimental to you. And if you're in a season of smoking like me, you don't want to rest and just become so comfortable in that because smoke is bad in general. So, as a child, smoking becomes just part of your environment before you actually intellectually understand it. This is why I've come to the conclusion to believe that environment plays such a heavy role in shaping the curiosity of a child because children are always absorbing before they are fully understanding. They're just like a sponge. Everyone has had some sort of experience with a sponge, washing dishes, cleaning up. You put that sponge in water, it soaks it all up. And that's exactly how a child is. So in my case, although my mother didn't smoke, I was still around it more than I was around her. Not because she didn't care about me, not because she neglected me, but because she was a busy single mother. And single parents, I empathize with y'all because when you're having to carry the load of taking care of a child by yourself that you did not create by yourself, is no way you can get this thing right. You're fighting a losing battle from the beginning. So I commend my mom for trying her best to set great examples through what she believed in and through her posture towards certain things. But parents, just to make y'all feel better, although you didn't participate in certain stuff, that doesn't mean your child won't fall into it. And it doesn't mean that you did a bad job. So don't be hard on yourself in a situation where my mom didn't smoke, but I smoke. I'm sure she feels some type of way about that. I feel some type of way about that because I honored and I respected the fact that she modeled something that was so common in the environment that we're from. You have to have a level of strength and determination not to fall into just the cycle of what was going on around you. So I commend my mom for that. But my mama had to work. So she had to leave us with the village. She had responsibility. She was trying to make sure we was good. So she had to leave us. She had to leave us with family members, with friends, and just in the village. I call it the village. And parents, when you leave your kids with the village, sometimes the village has habits. The environment that you leave them in is already full of a lot of normalcies that you might not agree with. And guess what? If you don't agree with, if you don't want people smoking around your kid, adults are so selfish nowadays. They'll say, well, take them with you. I'm from an environment where people will say, well, take them with you. I don't got to watch your kids, or you can't tell me what to do in my house. And it's like the child is not considered. So a lot of times I feel like my mom was in a situation where, yes, she needed help. She needed someone to watch us, and she had to go with the flow because she needed someone to watch us. So you can't ask for a favor and then ask people to not do what they do in their own environment, their own home. It doesn't work like that. So look at just that example. Look at how a parent could have their back against the wall where it's regarding their child because they don't want this around their child, but they need help. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of parents are just in a situation like that. And it would be helpful for the village to consider. I'm not even asking you to fully consider. I'm just saying consider. If you have a child as my brother was asthmatic, my sister is asthmatic. These people had to grow up in environments where smoke was just in constant rotation. So the fact that they had asthma wasn't necessarily considered. And that's just a small portion of the village can sometimes be helping you but hurting you at the same time. So in situations like this, the child ends up living inside norms, whether the parent personally does it or not. That was my case. That is very important to me because sometimes people think, well, I don't do this around my child, or I personally don't live like that, so my child is fine. Well, parents, what you do, it plays a small part in how your child turns out. And I know that might be hard to hear because parents are busting their behinds trying to make sure they do for their children. And in some situations, a lot of situations, you have to accept that how that child turns out is not just on you. It's on you because it's your child, but it's not just on you. That's why representation matters. That's why stewardship matters. That's why environments matter. That's why the village matters. That's why how you show up and how you care about children matters as an adult. A lot of children are being shaped by more than their parents. Teachers, coaches, friends of the family, peers, just folks in the neighborhood, the owner of the corner store down the block. Everybody is pretty much involved with shaping your child. Remember that. So, even as a mother, if you are one way, or as a father, if you are one way, the environment that is assisting you with shaping your child could be another way. And those two inconsistencies matter. And this is also happening a lot in co parenting. Not to drift off from the main topic, but a lot of times children are with their mom and it's one way, and then they go and spend weekends with their father or vice versa. I don't know the situation. Then they go over to the other parent's home and it's very different. And that shapes children more than you know. Think about that, co-parents. Back to the story. Something else I remember clearly is how insecure I felt because of the smell. I hated smelling like smoke. I hated it. I really did. Just thinking about it right now, I hated it. And that's one of the things that now that I do consume, I still feel that same insecurity rise in me. As an adult, I'm conscious and concerned about if I'm going out into the world smelling like smoke and stuff like that. I'm very nitpicky about not settling in allowing the habit to consume every aspect of my life. And because that's how I felt as a kid. Everything smelled like smoke. My hair, my clothes, my book bag, my shoes, my skin, everything. Because everything smells like smoke when smoke is constantly everywhere. Personally, I think all smoke stinks, no matter what. You have people who are very delusional and they feel like, oh, I smoke this, so I'm okay and I don't smell bad. No, all smoke stinks. And a lot of smoke of anything smells. But especially as a child, I hated the fact that I smelled like something I didn't choose for myself. Adult, sometimes your habits are being forced on a child. I didn't ask to smell like smoke. I didn't have a say so in how I smelled because I had to just be okay with where I was. Parents and adults, y'all need to consider this. Sometimes y'all just forcing stuff on y'all kids or on the kids that's around you. And that's not fair. It takes away the choice. Children have choices as well. And I didn't choose to smell like smoke. I didn't want to choose that, but I had to. And I also didn't have the language for it. I just knew that I didn't smell as fresh as I wanted to smell, especially if I was staying over at my grandma's house or just being left in the environment where it was a lot of smoke. If I'm at home, cool, there's no smoking in the house. Even when my mom had male friends and stuff like that, they didn't smoke in the house. She just did not allow that. So it was safe with mama. Maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe she felt how I felt. And that was her way of breaking a cycle because I do think she broke that cycle. I just hated feeling like my environment was following me everywhere or was meeting people before they actually met me. Because when you smell like smoke, people could smell you. They could smell you coming. It's very easy to pick up on who parents and grandparents smoke and don't smoke because you could smell it. When I was around friends or at school, it was very easy to tell who was being raised by smokers and who wasn't, or who was being raised in a smoked out environment and who wasn't. And here's the thing, where I'm from, pretty much everybody probably smelled like smoke. Now that I think about it, because when you're from a certain environment, that's not just like your home situation. Typically, in a lot of spaces, your home situation is also reflected at school, at just places in the neighborhood, because this is all an environmental thing. So pretty much the environment smokes. So the only time you probably smelt something different was if you go outside of your environment. And then that way you can tell, oh, I smell different. Because there was a lot of times I just didn't know I smelled different because everybody pretty much smelled the same. And as a child in a situation like that, it can make you self-conscious. And I know a lot of smokers probably felt this as a child before you ever consumed whatever you smoke. I'm sure you probably felt some type of way about smelling like smoke. But sometimes you just grow into being complacent with, well, this is just what it is because you don't know anything else. I think a lot of what saved me from falling into a deep state of just doing what was in the environment was the fact that my mom kept us in activities that took us out of what I would call the hood. And what is the hood? The hood is a mindset. It's a condition. And eventually it turns into a physical place when like minded people get on one accord and then they build a community. But it starts as a mindset, having a very poor way of thinking. And in this situation, if you are a smoker and you're not considering the children, then that's a poor way of thinking because these are kids. Smoking is bad for you. If you're going to smoke, cool. You can do that in a way where it doesn't necessarily affect kids. But a lot of times people are just lazy with their habits. Instead of being a smoker and going outside to smoke because you got a house full of kids, y'all smoking in the house. Y'all smoking in the car. And even when I see peers and siblings, you're like, dang, y'all doing exactly what our folks did. Y'all know we hated smelling like smoke. And here y'all go doing the same thing because sometimes you could just grow and get complacent in the whole idea of, oh, well, this is just what it is. Adults, y'all might be living y'all life and this is just normal to you. Smelling like smoke, smoking, doing whatever is just normal to you. but the child is the one who's actually carrying the scent and the residue of what you do into environment that matter to them. Going to school, you want to feel clean. Going to play or whatever, you want to feel clean. You don't want to be smelling bad. It was one time, this is when I was in high school, my high school basketball coach, and this had probably happened several times, but I didn't notice it until high school. My high school basketball coach, he came to pick me up to take me to practice. And when I got in the car, before we even got to the end of the road, he had cracked his window. And it made me feel so freaking insecure because you can't smell how bad you smell when you in it. When you're living and you're being consumed by smoke, you don't know that you smell bad. So he rolled down his window and he wasn't rude about it. He didn't try to embarrass me, but he was like, "They smoke in your house, don't it? They smoke in your grandmama house, don't it?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He was like, "That's all right, but I'm gonna have to crack the window until we get to practice." And I'm glad he said it like that, but I still felt so embarrassed because it's nothing you can do. And you find a lot of kids, they trying to spray perfume, they trying to do all types of stuff to escape something that they're not asking for. And it's so difficult to do as a child because you don't even have the resources, the language, the voice, the courage to even speak up for yourself in this situation. So that was the first time I was like, dang, I probably been that just stuck with me. Adults, I want y'all to really think about this. Sometimes children carry environments on them emotionally, socially, and the biggest thing is mentally. And many adults underestimate how much their atmosphere is shaping the identity and insecurities of the children around them. For me, smoking was never just this isolated thing over in the distance. It was a part of the air around me, sun up, sundown. It was a part of what I saw, what I smelled, part of what I associated with grown people, and mostly it was part of what felt normal before I ever made any personal decisions for myself. And I think that matters because sometimes people talk about habits such as smoking. They talk about it as if the curiosity just appears out of nowhere one day. No, the curiosity of smoking and doing anything else is often formed in an environment long before it becomes the behavior. A child may not consume anything, may not touch anything, may not even fully understand what they are looking at, but they are still being introduced to a world through repetition. That does not mean that every child who's brought up in an environment that is smoked out or where people smoke, have the habit of smoking, that doesn't mean that that child is going to automatically grow up and just smoke. Like I said, my mom grew up in the same environment, she doesn't smoke. So, in some cases, people do beat the odds of whatever the habit is. And also, in my case, I didn't smoke as a child. I can't say the same for my siblings and stuff like that, but I didn't smoke as a child. Never. I didn't even smoke young, like high school, college. Nope, I didn't smoke. I didn't start until I was grown, around age 25. So I'm not telling this story as a person who immediately copied what I saw. I'm telling this story as someone who still knows that the environment still leaves an imprint, even when you resist something for years. And that's why I believe we need more honest conversations about how adult environments shape children, not just in extreme ways, not just in dramatic ways, in the ways children become curious, and mostly in ways where children become insecure. A lot of children have normalized something before they've even had a chance to choose or question it for themselves. Looking back, I can now see that smoke was a part of my environment before it was ever a part of my experience. And I think that's the deeper point I want to make in this video. Before many children ever participate in something, they have already been shaped by the presence of it. They have already formed feelings about it. A lot of times they have already attached meaning to it and they are carrying the effect of it. As a young girl, I remember we used to take notebook paper and make cigarettes. We would roll them into what we saw a cigarette looking like. because that's just how normal it was. Now, here's the thing, even as a child, we knew that we should not actually do that in front of the adults. It was something that we would do and only in the midst of us children. That's how crazy it is. Children know they shouldn't do this. But it's like, dang, if it's so bad, why are they doing it? And we always was conscious of don't let nobody catch us actually making the notebook paper from school into cigarettes. And we would just be acting like we're smoking. It was a fun thing to us because that's what it looked like. That's what connected people where I'm from. This is where people had fun, I guess. Like I said, children are perceiving stuff in a way that adults are not even considering. And through all of the effects that happen in situations like this, I personally, for me, one of the earliest effects was insecurity. Like I said, I didn't like smelling like it at all. So I still have that same feeling as an adult woman who has full control over if she has to leave the house smelling like smoke or whatever. I don't have to do that, but I'm still so uptight about it. Sometimes if I roll up and I smoke outside because I don't want it in my walls, I don't want it in my clothes, I don't want it on me. I'm constantly like super uptight about dental hygiene because the smoke lives in your mouth. It affects every aspect of your life. That's why I'm saying if you're in a season where this is what you're doing, cool, but don't ever think that this is where you should be forever. Everything has a time and a place. So when I talk about smoking, cannabis, and just this whole conversation, this whole series, I need people to understand that my perspective did not begin when I first consumed. My perspective began long before. It actually began through observation, it began through exposure, and it began in my childhood. Very young girl. It began in an environment that I call home. I experienced this idea and I developed a perspective about something through people that I love. Although my mom never smoked. And that's exactly why I want to have this conversation with nuance. I am not interested in demonizing people. I am also not interested in acting like environment doesn't matter. It does matter. What adults normalize does matter. What your children are repeatedly exposed to does matter. What your children carry into school, friendships, self image, and future curiosity matters. So, if there is one thing I want people to take away from this video, it is this: children notice more than adults think, and they carry more than adults realize. Sometimes they're carrying confusion, curiosity, insecurities, normalization. They are always carrying something. For me, before smoking was ever something I personally experienced, it was already something I had noticed environmentally. That's the truth. And that's why this conversation is bigger than the habit. It's about childhood, exposure, environment, and honesty. And I am simply tired of pretending. I'll see you on the next video.